Nice to have you here. So on our list today, let me pop back over there. First thing is getting in the JV agreement. Most everyone has it in already. We're just missing 1 or 2 people still. So if you have not sent in your JV agreement, please do so as soon as possible. We are shutting down the old server, the old Discord server today. You know, by the end of January, it's gone. And then February, we're all on the new server. So, you know, we're kind of posting things to both servers right now, but sometimes we might forget one or the other, and it's tough being between 2 servers. So we're just going to shut the old one down tomorrow. So please make sure that you get your JV in, and we can get you in on the new server if you're not already there. Much appreciated. Number 2 is the new CRM. And so Alex, that's ready to go now, right? And we're going to start loading people into it.
Yes, yeah. Mike is going to start loading everybody in, and everybody should start receiving emails here shortly. And if you don't receive an email, we'll just have to follow up with you to make sure that we have the right email on file, because we just took everything that we had previously and just kind of moved it over to the people that signed.
All right, great. And you know, with the new CRM, the pipeline setup, the Kanban, we can set it up for our particular needs.
You'll never know how to take care of.
So it's not like the old one where it's all set up in one specific manner, which is great because we can make sure it's tweaked exactly to our needs. So please let us know how it is flowing for you. If you think that the Kanban, the columns in the pipeline could be readjusted, either adding some, deleting some, moving them around, we welcome your input. So this is you know, something that we can improve as we progress. But hopefully you'll be getting into the CRM within the next day or 2, as Mike and Alex and Priya are accomplishing that. And then the third point is the input form. So in the CRM, you can actually enter the information straight into the CRM. You can create a new card with the contact information, the property information. That's definitely possible. The challenge with that is there's no way to control if all the information needed is actually entered or not. With the form, it gives us the advantage of, there's 2 advantages. One is that it'll walk you through question by question. So as you're talking to the agent or the seller, you can enter the information in. You ask them the question, you enter it. Ask them the question, you enter it. So it kind of guides you through the conversation so that we get all the information that we need. And then number 2, it has the required fields as required, so you can't skip them. That way, you know, if you just do it straight in the card, there may be pertinent information that is totally skipped that we can't move forward with unless we have that information. So the idea behind the form is twofold: guide you through the conversation and make sure we get all the needed details in that conversation, or in the card inside the system. Any questions on those first 3 points? They're pretty straightforward. All right, I guess they were pretty straightforward. You like my leading question? This is really simple. Nobody has a question, right?
That's a good thing. You keep it easy and simple, everybody can get it, and then we can start really closing some deals and not have to think too much. Just kind of progress forward.
All right. And we also got in here Jorge and Kathleen is joining. So glad to have you guys aboard as well. I'll wait for Kathleen to jump in, and I'll kind of reiterate very quickly what we went over. So just to reiterate what we covered thus far, we got a couple more people join us. Number one, if you haven't sent in your JV agreement, the new one with the new percentages, please do so ASAP. We're shutting down the old server. Today's the last day of the old server. So got to get that in to get you in on the new Discord server. Number two, the new CRM should be ready for people to be loaded in. So Alex and Mike and his team are working on that. And hopefully you'll be in that today or tomorrow. And then number three, the intake form, please use that instead of entering it straight into the CRM, because that will help guide you through the conversation and make sure you cover all the points. And it'll make sure that you actually, it'll force you to enter in key points so that they're not missed. All right, so now moving on to number 4, which is the Skorch method. So if anybody's in sub 2, you might already be familiar with the Skorch method. And if not, I'll kind of outline it. And it's basically agent outreach. So those that are familiar with the Astro program, you know, they focus a lot on agent outreach. Yes, that's right. Alan Knowles asked, is that Jonah? It is. It's Jonah Korchin. Is it Korchin or Korkin? I think it's Korchin, right? Not sure how you pronounce his last name. But yes, it's his program that he has within sub 2. And yeah, so it's his program, and he basically, it's very similar to the Elephant Challenge, except the Elephant Challenge and what we have been doing is more focused on a specific listing where we're doing the numbers. We're putting in a bunch of calls to agents on their listing and trying to follow up on that listing. And we're, you know, working for going for the no, going for the counter offer, and trying to make that listing work. And that's definitely doable. The Skorch method is more focused on the agent than it is on that particular listing. And so what he does is he might use a listed property as a seed to get to speak to the agent, to build a rapport with the agent, but he's not necessarily counting on that property being closed. It may or may not happen, but most of his properties are actually off-market properties that he gets from those agents that he's built rapport with. They're pocket listings, right? So you start with a on-market property, you go to the listing agent, you build the rapport, you try to work that property, but you don't go crazy over it. So with his, you know, we can marry these two together to where we can go for the no, we can ask for the counter offer, we can try to make it work, but we don't spend hours and hours and hours or follow up and follow up and follow up if it's simply not going to work. So still go for the no, go for the counter offer, and then see if you can negotiate it. If that property simply is not going to work, the agent that you've been speaking with, that relationship is very valuable. It's actually more valuable than the property that you went after. So the reason is because off-market deals from agents, pocket listings, you're more likely to get that deal than you are to get the listed properties from those agents. So once you built that rapport, the idea is that you follow up with those agents on a regular basis. The nice thing about REI Reply is that it's built for text messaging. So we're going to be working out how we can incorporate into REI Reply a follow-up system for the agents that we're establishing the rapport with. So as you're building rapport with different agents and you work out one property, if it doesn't work, then we put them into a pipeline, into a campaign, a follow-up campaign, so that every week or two, we reach back out to them and just ask them, hey, you got any other fixer-uppers for us? And then as we build that list of agents, we keep reaching out to them and we keep trying to work deals. We, as soon as they get a pocket listing, we want to be the one that they remember. Why? Because we're reaching out to them every week or two. They know our name. We're insistent so that they can, as soon as they get a listing, instead of them having to go to all the work of building a listing and putting it together and listing it on MLS, they can just shoot us a text or an email and say, hey, I got another property for you. And that's a lot easier for them. So if we're there for them, they'll go that easy route to give that listing to us. Does that make sense? Anybody have a question on the idea of agent follow-up and pocket listings? All right, Daniel says, makes sense to me. Right on. Now, another interesting thing that he does is instead of the double dip where the agent gets both the listing commission and the seller commission, he basically says he'll forego the selling commission. I'm sorry, the buying commission. So instead of the 6%, it's only 3%. Now, why does he do that as opposed to giving the idea behind the double dip is that, and that's kind of a Kegley Astro thing, is that it incentivizes the agent to work with us because they're getting double the commission, right? Well, Jonah's idea, and he's having great success with this, is that instead of giving them double, we're taking that other half, that 3%, and putting it back to the seller. So now there's more room to negotiate. So let's say that the listing is for 150. So 3% of 150 is what, 7,500? Is that right? No, I'm getting it wrong. 3% of 100 is 3,000, right? So 150, that'd be 4,500. So that's like 4,500 bucks that is there put back into the pricing for us to negotiate. So that's more room for us to get to be able to have our fee, our wholesale fee out of it. There's only so much room for, fees and commissions. So if two realtors are getting a commission and we're getting a wholesale fee, that's chewing up a lot of space and it makes it harder to make a deal, right? So if we take one of those out and there's only one realtor getting a commission and our wholesale fee, then that's an extra 45K, or sorry, 4.5K or something that can go into our wholesale fee. Does that make sense? Alan, what you got for us?
Yeah, Ralph, that does make sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. So that's a situation where Jonah or anyone using his method would not engage a buyer's agent, basically, right? Just let the listing agent handle the whole thing.
Yeah, so he breaks it down into 4 categories of what he prefers. And he does not prefer working with buyer agents. You can use a buyer agent to contact listing agents and negotiate for us, and he will do that for certain. But he says the vast majority of his deals come from listing agents off market. And
Okay.
then number 2 is from buying agents off market, where they have, they're acting as a buying agent, but they go to other listing agents that have their pocket listings, right?
So in that case, we tell the buying agent with the off-market property lead, don't put in for half of the commission, or the buyers.
If you're working with the buyer agent, they'll get their half still.
Oh, so we don't take care of them separately. They still get their half. Okay.
Yeah. In that scenario, if you're working with a buyer agent, you don't do the I'll forego the buying agent commission.
Okay. And in the first scenario, when you say we put money back in the pocket of the seller, or that there's more money to play with negotiating the deal. It's really between the seller and the agent, the listing agent, if he wants to cut down his commission, because we can't really, I suppose, tell them what to do, right?
Right. I mean, typically in the contract, it's going to have a 6% or 5%, and it's
Yep.
going to be split in half between selling and buying. But basically, you tell them we'll forego the buying commission, and that kind of, without saying it straightforward, is basically saying that there's only going to be half the commission here so that we can make this deal work.
Okay.
He doesn't
Okay.
come out and say, only take half the commission. He just says we'll forego that half.
Okay, and the listing agents that want that whole commission where they see, oh boy, there's no buyer's agent, I can keep the whole thing. That's going to be up to the
Yeah,
relationship between the seller and the agent, right?
yeah, that's up to them at that point.
Okay, great.
We're
Thank
just kind of planting that seed to help make the deal go through.
Yep.
Yeah. Andrea.
Hey, so I have a question about what type of characteristics of listing agents would we be looking for, or would we be asking everyone we call? Are there certain ones that would be more inclined to work like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So he does both, going after. He does not filter for agents that are investor agents. He goes after both agents that have active listings because they have shown that they're actually doing work. The vast majority of licensed agents out there don't even have a listing, right? A lot of them are new, a lot of them come and go, but he goes after, number one, agents with listings. So he goes into PropStream. He uses PropStream to download a list of all the properties within an area, including the listing agent information. So that's his agent listing building tool, is that, so that he can grab the ones with active listings. The second thing that he does is he goes to Facebook groups that have, it might be like Atlanta Realtors or Atlanta real estate agents or something like that. And then from there, he has a system to actually reach out and connect with them through Facebook Messenger. And then he offers them, he asks them, hey, can we do deals together where I'm an investor? Here's my information. And if they say yes, he gets their information, and then he puts them into the CRM and he reaches out with a phone call. Those in the Facebook group are very frequently newer people. He says, but although the ones that are in PropStream, and I think you can do the same thing in Privy if I'm not mistaken, do a download and capture the agent information. I'll have to double check that. But the idea behind that is you get people that are active, right? They have their own listings. The ones in Facebook, the idea behind that is that they're new and they're hungry. So they may not have anything now, and he's not necessarily counting on having them have something now, but he'll reach out to them and he'll have a short 5-minute phone conversation. And then he puts them into the routine, the campaign, so that every week or two they get a follow-up and saying, hey, just checking if you got any new listings for us. We're looking for pocket listings. We're looking for fixer-uppers. And so long as that system is automated, it's not such a big deal that they're new and they don't have any properties yet, because you're not spending a lot of time with your follow-ups. It's all fairly automated. And then with the ones with active listings will probably be the ones that are more quickly fruitful because they're already in the business, right? They're already doing deals. So more of them would pay off sooner. It doesn't really make that big a difference when you're on the phone, because you're just spending 5 minutes. If there's no property involved, the way he does it, he's doing it. He spends a few minutes on the property. If he's going after a realtor with a listing, he'll spend a few minutes on the property and define if it's a possibility or not. And then he'll go into, do you have any others? Do you know of any other properties that will be good for us? And then, we'd love to keep in touch. And if you have any other properties that you get pocket listing, let us know. And then from there, they're just on the routine follow-up. Does that answer your question, Andrea? Okay, cool. So I took a few notes. I'm going through, he has like 17 hours of training videos on this. So I'm not done with them yet. I've gone through like 7 hours, I think so far, 7 or 8 hours. Still working my way through it. But as I go through it, I'm going to be sharing what I learned with you guys so that we can all grow and improve together with this. But I did write down 4 things that he asks, or that he talked, the 4 things that he needs to make sure is included in his phone call. Hold on, let me pull this up real quick. Hi. Bingo. All right, so basically he starts with the existing property, calling about 123 Main Street. What can you tell me? Goes through that listing, sees if it will work or not. And then he says, well, I'm an investor. I'm looking for fixer-uppers in such and such area. And what I do is I want to be a tool in your tool belt and help you solve problems, especially in hard listings like, divorce, probate, foreclosure coming up, all those challenging ones that you're on a timeline and they're harder to deal with. I'm your guy. And, do you think that might be helpful? And then he goes and asks, do you have any other properties that might fit this, that I might be able to help you out with? I want to make sure you get your commission. So he focuses on them, right? Not on the seller. He focuses on the agent, help you get your commission. And then if they do, they talk about those other properties. If they don't, then he says, his point is to make sure you're super appreciative. That helps build the rapport. And then as well, you send them a text message afterwards, telling him how much you appreciate the conversation and you look forward to, working with them in the future and doing deals together. So that's, hello? Yes, Vonda, were you saying something? Okay, anyway, that's basically his script of how he goes through to do the agent outreach before he puts them into the routine follow-up campaign. All right, Alan, what you got?
I'm not sure if you mentioned this, you probably did at the beginning, but that would be especially effective for expired listings, I would think. Not just long days on market, but especially expired listings. If we could convince him that maybe by going back to look at some listings that not only are old, but that he's lost, but he still has obviously the relationship and hopefully some still good rapport with the seller. We could ask him to, when he's asking him to think of other properties, those in particular, because he's already had a relationship in the past, and he could be the knight on the white horse riding back to, rescue that seller and that property that didn't move, and also maybe time, as we know, has made the seller more realistic about the market and where the price should be. That I think would be extremely helpful going after those types of properties, which he's probably written off long ago.
Yeah.
Or
Don't mention that, but I think that's a brilliant idea. I like that idea.
Yeah.
That'll
Great.
help make them the hero, and they might, recapture some what do you call it, some commission that they had lost out on.
Yeah, or maybe they have a fellow agent they know that lost a listing just because it expired, and maybe there is some hard feelings between that seller and that agent, but he could say, maybe I could go, work it out with his buddy, but go approach that seller too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that might work. I like that. I'm glad you brought.
You got cut off. But yeah, I like that idea, Alan.
Thank you.
You bet. Another thing he mentioned is he tells them he's looking for properties. Now he's in California. I forget if it's Northern or Southern California.
San
But-
Francisco area, right.
Okay.
Yep.
And he goes for about 65% of ARV. And that includes the repair costs. So, the type of properties he's looking for is about 65% of ARV, unless it's a major issue beyond the scope of that typical repair value. That area, their margins are a lot thinner because the pricing of houses are so high, they can get by with less profit margin in the deal. So, where we might, depending on, where we're at, like Memphis, there's no way you could do 65% to include the value of the repairs. You got to, that's like, most people do 70%, right? And then you subtract repairs beyond the 70, and it might leave you at 50 or 55 or 60%. He's doing 65, but he's in Northern California area. So it's a different market. But that's where he's at. So depending on the market you're in, that kind of gives you an idea. You can just let the realtors know, yeah, we're looking for things that are listed at, about 50 to 60% of ARV. That's something that you could play around with in your market and see if it makes sense and how they respond to that. But basically you're looking for fixer-uppers, right? So if they understand that and don't give you a bunch of properties that are already retail ready, then that's the challenge. Is if they're not used to working with investors and they give you a property that's retail ready, the seller's probably not going to go for the price that we want to give them, because we're not really adding value versus a retail buyer buying it, right? Our value is in repairing it, and then either repairing it, through a fix and flip, or doing some form of creative finance to make the deal function. But primarily, we're working with fix and flippers and looking at properties that need repair. So if it's not a fixer, it's probably not a deal. If it's, it could just be dated, it could be in great shape, but it just needs, some paint and maybe new countertops, new flooring. That's a deal, right? So we just need to make sure that they're sending us the right type of listings. So if they're not familiar with investors, they may not grasp exactly what we're looking for, what works for investors.
Ralph, could I ask you to briefly just clarify for myself, if not maybe for a couple of others, when you say 65% inclusive, that means you don't have to, and I know we went over this last week also, but that means that's after all the math is done, that's the price you want to be at. Whereas 70% minus repairs means you still have to, and I know you did the math and it came out close, but there is a difference, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that what you said was right. It's 65% inclusive. That includes the repairs. So if its value is 300, let me pull up my calculator. It's after repair value is 300.
Say 50,000 in repairs.
The 65% would be 195. So that includes the 50,000 in repairs already. You don't take that out.
So 65 right off of the 300.
Yeah, 65%. Yeah.
Whereas the other way would be 70% of the 300 minus the 50,000.
Right. Now,
Okay.
he's not saying he's offering 65%. He's just telling the realtor do you have any listings that are, around 65% of ARV?
Okay,
So each property is going to be its own, depending on the condition of the property, you're going to make an offer that matches the condition, right?
and that's why Privy can be so valuable, 'cause you can figure this out within that software, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
But the idea behind the 65%, and for us, if you're not working North California or something like that, it's going to be a lower percent. It might be 60, it might be 55 or something like that. But the idea behind that is you're basically telling the realtor, I don't want anything that doesn't need fixing up. I need something that's listed below, well below or I should say that they're wanting well below the after repair value, because they recognize it's not in good shape.
okay, great.
It's not really to form a calculation of a price. It's just to make sure we're looking at the right type of properties.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if you do the 65% and that includes repairs, at what point do you have to really focus in on the repair estimate, or are you leaving that up to the end buyer who's probably a contractor or rehabber anyway? They're going to use their own numbers anyway. Is that what happens?
I'm not sure if I followed your question.
Like if we lock a property up for the 65%, I guess the other question is that, would that include our wholesale fee too? Or do we still have to back out our assignment fee?
Yeah, don't look at that percentage that we just spoke of as being anything dealing with how we're going to evaluate or offer.
Mhm.
It's simply to help the realtor understand what type of properties we're looking for.
Oh,
Then
I see. Okay,
when we actually get a property, we're gonna do that lowball offer, the go for no, 50% of value or something like that. And basically you take your ARV minus repairs, cut it in half. That's the lowball offer. Or if you want to calculate it more completely, you can, and that's the ARV times 70% minus repairs. And I forgot to mention the wholesale fee in both cases. You subtract out the wholesale fee, and then you do an offer below your max allowable offer, your MAO. So if you do the 70% minus repairs minus wholesale fee, that's your MAO, right? But you don't want to offer your MAO, your max allowable offer. You want to offer something less than that, so you have some negotiating room. So what I had been suggesting is that you go 10% less than the MAO, and that gives you 10% negotiating power, right?
okay,
But with the go for no method, it's much simpler. You just subtract out repairs and cut it in half and take out your wholesale fee, and you're done.
okay. So that initial figure is just a way it really helps the agent filter out what we're not going to be interested in. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So
So
they
we don't
bring
waste her
us the
time or
offer.
ours.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You bet. Okay. Another thing that he was talking about is how he approaches, a lot of people have asked, do we tell them we're a wholesaler, right? This is something kind of a recurring question, because sometimes it's like oil and water, realtors and wholesalers. Some realtors don't like to work with wholesalers. So if they hear you're a wholesaler, it's a turnoff, right? And until you establish that rapport, if you tell them out of the gate, I'm a wholesaler, you might already close that door, so you can't build the rapport. So what he tells them is simply, I'm an investor, me and my partners are looking for blah, 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 blah. And, so we do fix and flips, we do wholesale, we do buy and hold, depending on the deal and what works for us. So me and my partners includes our whoever we're selling to, whoever we're dispoing to, they're also our partners in this, right? So me and my partners includes all of us. It includes our buyers. So if he says, I'm an investor, me and my partners, we do fix and flip, wholesale, buy and hold, it's kind of giving them an umbrella that we do it all. So, tell us what you got and we'll see what we can do with it. And that way you're not just telling them I'm a wholesaler and shutting the door, nor are you telling them I'm a buyer, I'm not a wholesaler, right? You never want to mislead them. In the end, it's going to bite you and you're going to ruin that relationship that you had built with that agent. So you want to be honest and you want to say it in a way that doesn't close the door, but also, as you build the rapport, as they get their commission, if you do a deal or two and you wholesale it and they get their commission, they're not going to care anymore. All they know is that they're getting deals from you, right? They're getting their commission from you. Initially, it might be harder if they've got a bad taste in their mouth for wholesalers, or they've heard has a bad rep. But once they see that we can be their partner in getting deals done over and over and over and over and over, then all of a sudden we're in a good light, right? So by out of the gate, just letting them know we're investors, we have our partners, me and my partners do X, Y, and Z, and one of those is wholesaling, then that lets them know without the confrontational, I'm a wholesaler conversation. Does that make sense? All right.
It does. It does. And I just had this issue with a property up here in Massachusetts the last day or two, and it was actually 2 objections. The agent wanted to know if they could have the resale after the rehab was completed.
Oh,
The relist, which is a common request, and the other one was strongly suggesting that I not put in and/or assigns. And fortunately, in Massachusetts, unless you specifically say a contract's not assignable, by law it is assignable. Now that's not the law everywhere, some places, but as you know, best practice is to always disclose it anyway, because you don't want to surprise the seller between now and the closing. So,
right.
And I know everybody probably has heard this, the way around that is to say, look, I have to put in and/or assigns, not necessarily because I'm a wholesaler and I am going to wholesale. That's one of many potential exit strategies, but I don't know what entity I'm going to, whether it's me and/or my partners, which I'll certainly have on the deal if I keep it. We don't know what entity we're certainly not taking it in our own name. So that's
Yeah.
a usual workaround on that objection.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely.
Yeah. But especially in the states where, unless you specify it's assignable, that it isn't. And that's fortunately not the case in Massachusetts, but like they always say, check your local jurisdiction.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you a little bit about the KPIs that he had mentioned, he said if you're doing, basically you want to have a 5-minute intro call. It's going to be a little longer if you have a listing, right? Because first you have to talk about the property, and then you do those other questions and tell them about who you are and show your appreciation and ask if they have other properties. That part of it only takes 5 minutes. So if they don't have current listings, basically it's a 5-minute intro call, and then you put them on the follow-up campaign. So he's saying if you do 50 calls a day, not necessarily that all 50 pick up, maybe only 20 to 30 of those actually pick up, right? So you're having 20 to 30 phone conversations per day. And then you also, if they don't pick up, you send them a text and you kind of let them know by text message, the same thing that you would have let them know by the phone call, that you're an investor, you're looking for fixers, et cetera, et cetera. And then you put them into that routine. So the follow-up, some of them will be also by phone call, depending on on the type of relationship that you have with that agent. So if they say they have a property, get on the phone with them, have that conversation. But he said between the follow-up phone conversations and the intro phone conversations, you should be having 20 to 30 calls a day. And that means 50 phone calls, but not everyone's going to pick up, right? If you want to really ramp up how quickly you get a deal, do 150 calls a day, and which means you're going to actually talk to about half of that, right? So 75, if you take 75 times 5 minutes, 375 minutes divided by 60, that's about 6 hours. And that's what he said. If you're doing 6 hours a day phone calling, then you should get it a deal a month. 6 hours a day, a deal a month. We're going to be looking closer at how we can implement this into our system to where the CRM will do the follow-up for you and somehow, queue you for phone calls, so that if they say, hey, I got a listing, you can pick up the phone and talk to them. When you're dealing with agent follow-up, we have PFs, we have AMs, right? The AMs basically are providing the support for the PFs so that they can make that deal happen. They can negotiate it properly. They can get on the phone and help close the deal. So we don't want the PFs to do a lot of the initial work. And then when a different property comes, they don't get their JV fee, right? We want the PFs to be in the loop. It only makes sense that if you're building that rapport, that you're in the loop and that you get your fee, right? Whoever's involved, we want them to get their fee. That's the whole idea, is that everybody gets a paycheck for the work that you accomplish. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out, but the idea behind this is that, with the agent, what's the term? I lost my term now. Working with agents, yeah. Sometimes a simple word just leaves the brain, right? If you're working with agents and you're developing that relationship with them, then they're going to bring you a deal. So we want the PFs to be in the loop with the agent, probably through REI reply, so that you can see when a deal comes, you can call them up and that will be your deal. Does that make sense? I don't have all the answers. Oh, agent outreach. There it is. I don't have all the answers right now on how to implement this, but we're going to be looking at it and seeing how we can incorporate agent outreach inclusive with what we have been doing, which is more like property outreach through an agent, right? This is more agent outreach to bring us their pocket listings. So we've kind of had that idea from day one, but not really looked at implementing. We knew that rapport with the agent is important. We're building an agent pool, but we have not really been doing follow-up on these agents to bring us pocket listings, right? Maybe some of you have with the agents that you've reached out to. I think perhaps Vonda has, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know who all has, but we need to systematize it and make sure that we're following up with these agents. And if we can take out some of the workload in the follow-up by having it automated in REI reply, that will help with doing the follow-up and getting more pocket listings. And pocket listings are deeper. The profit margins are deeper in pocket listings than in on-market properties, simply because the competition level isn't there. Does that make sense? Any questions on agent outreach, Skorch method, and the potential of implementing it into our system? No questions.
No, I think you're really onto something here, Ralph. I think this just came up the other night on Wholesale Hotline too, or Jonah was in the comments. And
Okay,
he was talking in real time about how successful he's been with this method, so that the timing is perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's great too. It's a natural fit for what we're doing with on-market properties, right? We're already reaching out to agents, but that's a valuable asset that we're really not given due attention to. So I think this will help us to do that. And really, you know, Pace had said before, the money is not in the on-market. It's in the pocket listings. And that's pretty much what Jonah was saying as well. There are, you know, you ask Keegley and what's his name over there?
Jamil.
Yeah,
Jamil.
Jamil.
Yep.
Jamil will tell you, you know, you can make money on market just as easily, but most people say it's off market, and you're really looking for pocket listings.
And the follow-up, right?
Yeah.
The
So
relationship.
yes, you know, we all have been working on and struggling to get an on-market deal, but I think if we incorporate this element, we won't be just throwing out that valuable asset of the agents and the potential pocket listings that they can bring to us, so that the initial work that we put into it will be able to lift us up higher than what we have been doing.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll, you know, bring, as I'm going through the courses, I'm going to each week bring more information about what he's doing, what's working, how we can implement it. And Alex and I will be talking about how we can implement it. You know, we already did talk about putting into the system that auto follow-up with text message, but we need to look closely to, you know, just make sure that it all flows smooth. And, you know, we'll probably pull Mike Jones, you know, he's our systems guy, and to see how we can get that to be integrated for you guys. Any questions?
Yeah, is there anything Mike Jones can't do?
Right? Mike he's a smart dude. You know, not only is he has this technical brain that can figure things out, he loves working with systems, but he's also, you know, a successful wholesaler that negotiates. He does he does what do you call it, creative deals. He does a lot of gator lending stuff.
Yep.
So man, the guy is a powerhouse of information and knowledge, and glad to have him on the team for certain.
That's for sure. Before I don't know if you're close to wrapping up, but before you do, can you talk about the markets again, if they're the same or they've changed at all, or which ones you prefer us to focus on?
Yeah, so the markets have not changed in that you can do the markets that we have been doing for certain. The market that you have been doing, feel free to keep doing it. However, if there's a new market, if there's a different market, perhaps you were already doing a different market before you came on board and you prefer do that market or your local market, that's okay. So if some of you want to do driving for dollars or reverse driving for dollars, that works, and we can do that market. There's certain markets that we may be challenged to do. For example, I've mentioned before, on market for North Carolina. For on market, they require a due diligence fee, non-refundable, which as wholesalers, we can't do that. So in some cases, they'll agree to, you know, not do the due diligence fee, but most realtors in North Carolina are trained, and they train their sellers that you're going to get this non-refundable due diligence fee. So unless it's a special situation, you know, the idea behind markets that we don't want to work, if there is a sizable non-refundable deposit, we're not going to do it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Other areas might simply be more challenging. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it is definitely more challenging. You know, New York has been known to be more challenging. California, but a lot of people work California. Some people work New York. So there's nothing wrong with working those markets. It's just some areas are easier to work than other areas. So you go after the hot areas. If you're working Privy has certain areas that it has the MLS data, and it makes it easier to work those areas. You don't have to work those areas. There's other areas that Privy does not have that are also great. But you want to try to work areas where fix and flippers are working. If fix and flippers are not in that area, it will definitely make it harder to dispo. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But we're not specifying, don't go here or don't go there. That we, try to go after areas that fix and flippers are working in, and try to go after areas that you're not expecting a non-refundable fee, because we're not going to pay that. So you're going to get resistance if you do that. If it's off market, it's different. Off market, you don't have to worry about the non-refundable fee challenges.
And so far, that's just North Carolina.
Yeah, for the most part that I know of, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an option fee in Texas, but it's not as significant as the one in North Carolina. It's different. So it's much smaller. It's doable. If the deal is right, we'll put down that small fee and make it happen for Dallas, Fort Worth, or other Texas areas.
Is North Carolina a certain percentage, or is it just a monetary figure?
Well, it's typically a percentage. I think it's 1% of the deal, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, that can add up, especially
Yeah.
if you're making multiple offers. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, $100,000 deal, that's $1,000 right there. So yeah, it's the risk factor, right? So number one, when we're using Gator money to make a deal happen, they need to have a way out. So if we can't find a buyer, or we find things wrong with the property, they need to get their principal back. Whatever they put in, if they put in $1,000 and the deal doesn't happen, they need to get their $1,000 back. And in that case, they won't make any money at all as a Gator lender. But that's part of the risk that they take, is just not making money. But they're not going to take a risk of putting $1,000 in and losing it all. Not going to happen. So, we need to make sure that unless it's something tiny that we can just deal with internally, there should be no non-refundable fees at all.
and just on that note, I don't know if you were able to attend yesterday, but Rob and Molly had that Zoom meeting yesterday, and Sean St. Clair was the guest, and they went over the contracts in the thought process approaching EMD and Gatoring, and it's no longer going to be a joint venture arrangement between the buyer investor and the Gator lender. So they're knocking out that agreement. It may still be recommended that there be a joint venture if there's more than one Gator going in on the deal, but that's amongst the Gators. So now, according to Sean, and he's revising the documents accordingly, between the buyer investor and the Gator lender or lenders, plural, is mainly the note, and I suppose there's some form of deed of trust or whatever the other documents were, but no longer do you need to worry about a joint venture. As a matter of fact, he recommended against that because you don't want to appear to be in the deal with the buyer investor, because then you're liable to be swept up in any action that a disgruntled seller may take against the buyer. You're essentially a partner, so you want to just be a lender now. And I guess the concept of being a lender, I need more clarification on it, but I guess it's okay now to talk in terms of lending the money, because essentially that's now what you're left with. You're lending that EMD to the buyer investor. And that's all the relationship you want up to the closing. Now, beyond the closing, if you want to become a lender and or partner of the buyer, beyond closing, that's a whole separate deal. That's a separate matter. So that was
Yeah.
a big takeaway and a big change from yesterday, because we had all been told you want that joint venture agreement to protect you, like you just said, in case
Right.
things go south. You want authority to cancel the deal, but Sean said, no, you don't want that. You
Yeah,
don't
I'll
want
have to
that.
watch that. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate that.
yeah, but it's still a good idea if you got a partner with more than one gator to go in on a bigger EMD. It's probably a good idea to have a joint venture agreement amongst yourselves, just not
Right.
with the buyer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And with that arrangement, there's still the financials still end up the same as far as like, if it doesn't go through, they're not requiring any payment, right? It's only if it does go through.
It's still that gray area, and the topic mainly came up because we have those states and title companies and especially attorneys in the few attorney states, where they want that mutual release. So, and they want the seller in on it. But even when you don't need the seller, title companies may still want the buyer investor to sign the mutual release. And as
Yeah.
you know, if the Gator EMD provider pulls the plug on the deal, you're not going to have a happy buyer investor, let alone a seller. So
Right.
it's still a bit cloudy. And I think Sean is, working with Molly and Rob to get the exact language. So it's one
Yeah.
of those stay tuned sort of things. But yesterday was a pretty big game changer.
Yeah, I'll have to definitely go check that out. Thank you. Appreciate your bringing that to our attention.
No, sure. My pleasure.
Well, we have surpassed our hour, and thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And we'll keep you updated on the this Skorch method and how we can implement agent follow-up. And as well, you should be looking forward to being in the new CRM ASAP. If you haven't got your JV agreement in yet, please do so. We'll be shutting down the old Discord server at the end of the day today. Alex, anything else?
Yeah, I was in the background sending out the JV agreements to some people and added them to the list. So yeah, everybody who needs to get it in, because I'm adding them now. Actually.
Right on.
Does that mean no more triple burger anymore for our logo?
I kind of like that. That was fun,
I know.
right? I don't know.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah,
we'll
good everybody. Yeah,
change
that's
the
it for me.
change the
So
logo. We gotta have a fun logo.
yeah,
That one stood out, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll put that on the new server too.
yeah.
Well,
So I
thank
got
you.
everybody's information for the time being, and phone numbers and emails. So again, if you're not in the CRM by today or tomorrow, just reach out to me and let me know. It may just be I have a wrong number or a wrong email, and so we can correct that as soon as possible. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your being part of our team.
Yeah,
And
thanks very much, guys. Very, very informative today.
you bet. Definitely. Let's get some deals done.
Indeed. All right, everybody have a good day.
Bye.
All right.